Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Samira Haji bin Irama Al-Dasud. My number metric is 25DDT19F1056. Today I will explain about my assessment PE1 Set A. So, this is the topology for this particular exercise, and this is the lesson table. The objective have 6 parts. Part 1, verify basic network connectivity. Part 2, secure access to router. Part 3, create a number IPSL 120 on R1. Part 4, modify an existing SCL on R1. Create a number IPSL 110 on R3. Part 6, create a number IPSL 100 on R3. Required resources: packet tracer 1.002, packet tracer file from lab 3.3, configure IPSL to mitigate attack. Now we go for part 1. Before we go to part 1, so PCC is the management PC. We should only allow PCC to remote access to the router. In this topology, router 1 and router 3 are edge router. We will configure and apply SL on those router to mitigate common trace based source and destination IP address. So now we go for part 1. So part 1, verify basic network connectivity. So step 1, from PCA, verify connectivity to PCC and router 2. From the command prompt, ping PCC. So we go to PCA, desktop command prompt, ping PCC 192.2.1. Enter. So PCA successful ping PCC. Now we go to the next step. From the command prompt, establish an SSH session to R2 L00 interface 192.168.2.1 using username SSH admin and password Cisco SSH PA 55. When finished, exit the SSH session. So we establish SSH session to the R2 from PCA. Now we put the command SSH/L SSH admin. The IP address for R2 192.168.2.1. Enter. The password is Cisco SSH PA 55. So successful. Establish the SSH on R2 from PCA. Now we go to the step 2. Step 2, from PCC, verify connectivity to PCA and R2. On the command prompt, ping PCA 192.168.1.3. This is IP address for PCA. So we go to the PCC, go to desktop, and ping the PCA. Enter. As we can see, PCA also successful to ping to the PCC. Now we go to the B. From the command prompt, establish an SSH session to R2 interface. The IP address is 192.168.2.1 using username SSH admin. So we go to the PCC and put the command SSH-L. The name of SSH is SSH admin, and the IP address is 192.168.2.1. Enter. And the password is Cisco SSH bar 55. Enter. So also successful to establish on PCC. Now open the web browser to PCA server 192.168.1.3. So this IP address for PCA that we should be open on the web browser on PCC to display the web page and close the browser when done. Now we close this command prompt and go to the web browser and put the IP address 192.168.1.3. Enter. So as we can see, the web browser also successful to open. Now we go to the part 2. For part 2, secure access to router. Step 1, configure SCL10 to block all remote access to the router except from PCC. Use the access list command to create the number IP SCL on the R1, R2 and R3. So we go to the R1 CI and put the password Cisco conpa 55. Enable Cisco conpa 55 and config key. And now we go to the part 2 back and we must configure SL10 to block all remote access to the router except from PCC. Use the access list command to create the number IP SCL on router 1, router 2 and router 3. And then apply SL10 to ingress traffic on the traffic VTY line. Use the access list command to apply the access list to incoming traffic on the line VTY line. So the command is access list 10 permit host 192.168.3.3. Enter. And then put the command line VTY 04. Enter. And access class 10 in. Then we do show access so this is the IP access list that we configure. Standard IP list 10 and 10 permit host 192.168.3.3 and then we show line. So this is a VTY line that we configure. And then we continue for next router 2 and do the same things like the same thing like R1. Enter line VTY 04. And then go to the R3 and do the same thing. Access list 10 permit host 192.168.3.3 192.168.3.3. So this is the IP address for router 2. So this is the IP address for PCC. Sorry. 9VD1. Now we must verify exclusive access from the management station PCC. So we might establish unnecessary session to 192.168.2.1 from PCC and establish unnecessary session to 192.168.2.1 from PCC. Now we go to the PCC, put the command SSH, one ninety two dot one six eight dot 2.1 and enter. Password is Cisco. As you can see, it's successful. Now we go to the PCA, put the command SSH, one ninety two dot one six eight dot 2.1 and enter. Now we can see the connection refused by remote host because this all router only can access to PCC, and this PC cannot be able to send the connection from this router. Now we go for part 3. For part 3, create a number IPSL 120 on R1. So step 1, verify that PC can access the PCA via HTTPS using the web browser. So we must be sure to disable HTTP and enable HTTPS on the server PCA. Now we go to the PCA, turn off the HTTP and make sure the HTTPS is on. Now we go to PCC, go to the web browser, put the IP address PCA, enter, and wait for the second to get the result. As we can see, we get the request timeout, which made it fail. Now, if we put the S, which may HTTPS, enter, and we successful to get the result. Now we continue for next step for part 3. So configure SCL120 to specifically permit and deny to the specified traffic. So we must create an IP SCL number 120 with the following rule. First rule, permit any outside host to access DNS, SMTP and FTP service on server PCA. So we go to the router 1, create the access list, and permit DNS using UDP, permit DNS and put the UDP any host 192, which means the IP address for PCA 1.3 equal domain, and then we permit for SMTP and SMTP is TCP and FTP also use TCP, and then we go to the question So next rule, we must deny any outside host access to HTTPS service on PCA. Now we put the same command and change permit to deny TCP any host alias by using the IP address 192.168.1.3 equal 433, which means the port for HTTP, and enter. And then we must permit TCP host TCP. We must permit PCC to access R1 via SSH. Now we put the command SSH again and permit TCP host from 192.168.1.3, which means the IP address for PCC to router 1 host 192.168. The IP address for router 1 is 10.1.1.1 equal 22. Permit 192.168.3.3. So from the PCC, we go to the host router 1 10.1.1.1 equal 22, which means the port for SSH, and enter. Now we can see what we configure on the router 1, which means SCL120. So we put the command do show access. So this is a 5 rule that we configure. First, we permit DNS. Second, we permit SMTP. Third, we permit for FTP. Fourth, we deny any host to connect using HTTPS to the server. And fifth, we permit PCC to establish SSH connection to the router 1. Next, we go to this. This is the standard IP address, IPSS list, and 10 is line VT1 that we apply on router 1. Next, we go to the step 3. Step 3, we must apply SL to the interface S00. Why we apply to S00? Because it is a standard IPSS list 120. So we must apply to the very close to the source. So we put the command int s0/0/0, enter, and IPSS group 120 in. Now we go for part 4. Part 4, modify an existing RCL on R1. Permit ICMP echo reply and destination unreachable message from the outside network relative to R1. Deny all other incoming ICMP packet. Step 1. Verify that PCA cannot successfully ping the loopback interface on R2. Now we go to the table. This is a loopback for R2 192.168.2.1. Now we go to the server A and ping it. So the ping is not successful because the ping packet from the server can reach to the router 2, but when the reply goes to the router 1, so on this interface is blocked because access list that previously config. Now for next step, step 2, make any necessary change to SL120 to permit and deny the specified traffic. So we go to R1, put the password Cisco confa Enable Cisco 1455 conf t, and now we must permit the echo reply from any source to any server. And then we must permit for the unreachable message. Now we must to deny the ICMP from any source to any server. And then last we must to permit the IP from any source to any server. Now we can see to that one that we configure. So this is the what we configure. So we permit TCP host. So we permit ICMP any echo reply. Second, we permit the unreachable message. And third, we deny the ICMP and permit the source to any server. Now we close. For step 3, verify the PCA can successfully ping to the loopback interface on R2. Now we go to the PCA back and ping it again. Now the ping is successfully because we permit the ICMP echo reply. Now we continue for part 5. Part 5, create a number IP SL110 on R3. Deny all outbound packets with source address outside the range of internal IP address on R3. Step 1, configure SL110 to permit only traffic from the inside network. So we go to the R3. So put the command access list and permit 110 permit, and IP internal IP address is 192.168.3.0, and this is a wildcard mask 255 any. And then we go to the next step. Next step, we must apply the SL to interface G0/1. Use the IP access group command to apply the access list to incoming traffic on interface G01. So we go to the interface G01 and then put the IP access dash group on interface G0/1 and inbound 110 inbound, enter. And then we can see that we configure by using show running config. So this is a G0/1 and this is the IP address for G0/1, and this is the IP access group 110 is in, and we also can see the access list. Also access list 10 permit host 192.168.3.3, and this access list 110 permit IP 192.168.3.0, and the record is 100.000.255. Now we continue for last part, is a part 6. So for part 6, we must create a number IPSL 100 on R3. On R3, block all packets containing the source IP address from the following pool of the addresses. Any RFC 1918 private addresses 127.0.0.0/8 and any IP multicast addresses because PCC is being used for remote administration. Permit SSH traffic from the 10.0.0.0/8 network to return to the host PCC. For step 1, configure SL100 to block all specified traffic from the outside network. So we go to the R3 and we must permit TCP network and put the command access -list 100 permit TCP and the network address is 10.0.0.0 and 0 255.255.255 equal 20 hosts. And next, we must put the IP address for PCC 192.168.3.3. Oh, sorry. Next, we must deny the IP address or block the IP address. So the command is ss-list 100 deny 10.0.0.0 and 0.255.255.255 any. Enter. Sorry. Next, we must to deny the network address because this is the private network address. So 172.16.0.0 15.255 any. Enter. And then we must to deny the class B because class B is the private address. Now we must put the IP address for class B 192.168.0.0 and it's a wildcard mask 0.255 any. Enter. And then it's a class C. Class C also we must to deny because class C is the private address. And the IP address is 127.0.0.0.00255 any. Enter. And then we must to deny the multicast 224 000, and the backup mask is 15.0.0.25 and enter. And then we must to permit from any source to any destination. And then we can see the what we configure on access list. So this is what we configure on access list. So this is a standard IP access list 100, and this is the first we permit for network address, and second we deny the IP address, third we deny the network address, and then we deny for class B and class C, and then we deny the multicast and permit any source to any destination. Now we continue for step 2. Apply the SCL to interface serial 0/0/1. Why serial 0/0/1? This serial, because on router 3 we should apply the access list to the inbound direction on this interface. So we go to the R3, put the password Cisco conpa 55, enable Cisco conpa 55, config T, and then we must put the interface serial 00/1. And then we put the IP access dash group 100 in. Enter. So we continue for step 3. Confirm that the specified traffic entering interface serial 00/1 is handled correctly. So from the PCC, command prompt ping the PCA server. The ICMP echo replies are blocked by the SCL because they are sourced from the 192.168.0.0/16 address space. So we go to the PCC, go to the command prompt and ping it. So this is IP address from PCA, which means it is server. We can see we can get the request timeout, and because we get the request timeout, ICMP echo replies are blocked by SCL since they are sourced from this network, and this is a network, and this is the network which means it's the class B private network. So router 3 will block it. So now we go to the next question. Establish an SSH session to 192.168.2.1 from PCC and should be failed. Now we put the command SSH -l SSH admin 192.168.2.1 and enter. So connection timeout and remote host was not responding because SSH to his address, but on this access list we only have the rule to allow 10.0.0.0/8. to return packet of this protocol to PCC. So we must choose the IP address of loopback router 2 by the interface from the interface and put the command as SSH admin and put the IP address from this server 10.2.2.2 and enter. Put the password Cisco SSH and PA. So as you can see, the SSH 1/1 SSH admin 10.2.2.2 and we put the password is already can be pinged or established. That's all for me. Thank you.